Welcome to Chapter 5 of Zahara Teaches What is Love. This is Zahara dealing with a difficult student. This chapter was a very important chapter in the book for several reasons. The first reason was that I wrote the story. I'm going to tell Jim a little bit about the background of the benefit of the difficulty. And in it, and when I wrote the chapter, and I took a part of the chapter from Krista's book, My Guide Inside, of a chapter that she had written. And I thought I had changed it enough that it wasn't plagiarism but they were upset about it. And because of that, and I felt that it was okay. And I was quite adamant about that. But Jim felt that there was more diplomacy and a gentler way to deal with it, which I didn't agree with. But because he had a friendship with the people on Salt Spring, a little bit closer than I had, I decided that he would make the decision of whether the chapter should be in or not. And I felt he would make the right decision. That was what my feeling told me. And then I rewrote the chapter, and I was pleased with it, but he said, not good enough. We'll have to take it out, of which I kind of didn't like, but we had made that decision. So we're dealing with a difficult situation where we're disagreeing with it. He has compassion at a higher level than I have. I'm sort of stuck in my mind a little bit about it. And so the decision is made to cancel the chapter. And I do what I often do. I go to bed and I just let my mind relax. And within 2 or 3 minutes, Jim, it was like God was sending a brand new chapter, totally all the points that I wanted to include in the chapter, but coming from a whole fresh perspective. And I jumped on the computer and then created the chapter in about 15 minutes. And I liked it. I liked it more than I liked the previous chapter. And it solved the problem of dealing with My Guide Inside authors. At the same time, it set the energy, the positive energy out, and changed their opinions, softened everything to the point where Krista and I and Jim worked together, and we agreed that some of My Guide Inside was a good addition to the Zahara series. And we also agreed that the only people who could teach it was My Guide Inside were those who had done the orientation that Krista has set up in her very structured curriculum. The only person who was allowed to teach it and teach My Guide Inside is Jervin, and then I supplied him with 25 books of My Guide Inside printed in Mabara. And so it's been a good story. I'm not sure if Jerwin has taught any of it yet, but it shows when even though you feel you are right, sometimes it's good to be wrong. And also it showed that sometimes it's good to listen to someone else besides your own mind. And in this case, Jim, I really have to compliment you on how not only diplomatic, but he did not bend what he felt was genuine, was the loving way to handle the situation. So that's quite a story to say how the story was written. And one of the things, 2 points I wanted to emphasize in the chapter was how to deal with a difficult student, a student that doesn't fit into the norm of what everybody agrees with, which you might say is me, if you want to know the truth in 3P. I was a very difficult, opinionated student. And Zahara saw this boy who all the teachers felt they could not teach. And Jim, that's what I experienced when I went into my daughter's class and taught the difficult students there. She had asked me to come in and teach just the difficult students. And I said, no, I will not do that. I want to teach everyone so we do not point them out that they are difficult. The second thing I noticed, this is very interesting, Mark, really, I sat at lunch with all the teachers, and they would naturally talk about the students. And they would talk about the 2 or 3 difficult students that my daughter had in her class, and they were all wrong, all of them. But they had said an opinion, and that's how they were teaching. And they were teaching down to the kids, the students, and the students could feel it. And I wasn't doing that. But not only that, they weren't seeing the unbelievable, unlimited potential of these difficult students who just had a different way of looking at things than the regular class. And so I wanted to bring Zahara in where she sees the bright light in the student and that. And the other thing I wanted to talk about in this particular chapter, in the zone. And we'll talk a little bit more about that a little bit later. But to me, this is a very, very important concept. And because sport and music are 2 of the ways that people get into the spiritual reality beyond the intellect of the school, I wanted to include that as well. So with that in mind, Jim, I pass it over to you.
Okay, Harry, thanks. I want to jump back to your first topic, which was how the story was changed, rewritten, a new story written, really. And the one part that I wanted to focus on was the apology. Apologies are just incredible experiences. When you look at yourself and you decide that you've done something that you're sorry you did, and then you reach out to make amends on that. It's a wonderful cleansing experience for any of us. It allows us to drop the ego, the self-importance, and to go in fresh, and to go in. You might say, rather than I know everything, I don't know everything. Go from there, and I think you can teach me, or I want you to know that I realize that my previous stance could be improved on, and I'm willing to do that. I'm going to drop the old and embrace the new, and that is a beautiful experience for every human. That helps us come into a place of being ready to listen, not to jump in right away with a refuting something or your opinion, but just to listen, just to learn. That's like a golden moment when we're really ready to learn, and we change when we do that. And it was quite beautiful to see Harry do this. He had to. It was my feeling, but he didn't have to. He could have gone on his own way, and other things would have changed. Of course, others would have adapted, and so on. It would have been a different world in terms of 3P in Africa. But he chose that route. He chose the route of acknowledging and being ready to move on, and in fact, showing it by writing the chapter and reaching out to the offended parties, and they embraced it. They were great. They were thrilled for Harry. They were thrilled for Harry. And you know, the Harry that started out, a beautiful guy, by the way, Harry, not a bad guy. And then there was roadblocks came up. There were certain decisions weren't quite right, and he was willing to take that honest look and then agree and then move forward. And everything started happening really quickly in terms of the elevation of all of the 3P Africa team and the reception that 3P Africa was starting to get from the established 3P community. And you know, it's a bit. I mean, we all could only wish for the opportunity, and it's there when we want to look all the time. To find something to correct. You know, so I face it, and then there's a new me appearing as a result of that, and that is the way we grow. Plain and
And
simple.
and also sometimes to follow someone who is in a wiser state of mind than your own. It's
Mhm.
like I wouldn't be able to have come to that on my own. I needed guidance. I needed love. I had to follow the loving way. And my mind and what my opinion was not able to, it could maybe even see that there was difficulty, but it could not see the path to love. And so sometimes it's better just to follow the loving path of the other person, and and you'll still have that uh, discourse in your mind, but the positive flow is what we're teaching you at 3P. There's this and there's that. That is what we're trying to point to. That's what our teacher was pointing towards. And this interferes with it. And sometimes we need two, or the love of the other person, the wisdom of the other person, to help you get over the hurdle. And I love that because on one level, I know I'm weak, I'm limited by what I have. But more importantly, I have a past and I have thoughts in there and I have resentments and this and so on. And this positive energy uplifted everything as it always does.
Oh yeah, it was a it was a total change. There was
Total change.
and 3P in Africa, the team 3P in Africa were doing great work and having great things happening. But facing up to flaws, you know, we are not perfect. We are not going to do it perfectly every time. That's just not how it goes. We have to make mistakes. The beauty is when we grow enough to realize that we are imperfect and that it's not a bad thing, that we're just doing it in innocence. We're doing our best in innocence, and then to wake up to that fact that what we're doing in innocence is really not what we think it is. Then we're ready to move. We take a look at it, we accept it, and we go on. And it's not like necessarily the easiest thing in the world to learn that way, but it's incredible learning when you make a shift like that. Um, you know, things look like they're doing great, but they're not quite as great as they look when you take a second view of it. And then you're faced with the fact that you know more now, and now what do I do? And again, that was the situation there. It was a classic example. Every human has it. Every human has it. When we've blown it and we realize it, and then we take that positive action to correct it in whatever way, so that we know that we've behaved as a result of that realization, that we behave properly. And there you go, a level of consciousness climbing, learning pouring in. The opposite to what you thought when you were judging yourself, when you forgive yourself for that. And
Well, we have to ask Gerwin
oh,
has to say a few
oh,
words.
sorry, Jervin. Sorry, Jervin. Especially if you've taught this, the other book too, I'd like to hear about it.
Oh, beautiful shirt.
I'd like to share a little bit about this story, this chapter 5 of Zahara, whereby Zahara helps the students. Actually, this story resonates with some of the situations that as teachers we have really been going through in the classroom, whereby you find we have students that when in the classroom don't really show enough interest in studies in the classroom, but for them they are focused on other areas. So you find in the classroom where we have a lot of subjects. So you find sometimes a student is really focused on a particular subject, but when it comes to another subject, then the student feels like they are not interested in that subject. So you find most of times teachers talking down on these students and always complaining about how they are underperforming in the classroom in these subjects, which sometimes lead these students to even start escaping, to start dodging classes when they see that on the timetable at this particular time we're going to have this subject, because the teacher always complains about them, so they feel like they don't need to be in that lesson because they don't want the teacher to complain about them in front of other kids in the classroom, maybe to talk down on them, to say that they are stupid, they are not intelligent, and all of that. So instead of helping these students, you find that we are the ones who are pushing them again away instead of pulling them closer to us so that we can really help them. So the thing that we enjoyed a lot about this is this chapter of Zahara is when Zahara understood the students, and Zahara noticed that this student has a particular skill in this field. So why can't I approach this student and talk to him and make him understand that the same feeling that he gets when he is doing this thing that he enjoys is the same feeling that he can get when he's also in the classroom. So this was a big step that Zahara took, which really helped Luam and made him to realize that actually he can do something in the classroom and not to always listen and follow what the other students are saying in the classroom about him, not to always listen to the negativity that the teachers are saying about him. So this is the approach that we had to kind of start using in the classroom to show the students that we all can do something in the classroom. There's no one who is stupid. We all can be good at something. And the same feeling that you get when you are doing that thing that you are good at, you can still get that same feeling to have interest in studies in the classroom. So you find when we encourage the students also feel like they are valued, and that makes them to feel like to keep coming to the classroom. Actually, before I saw many students dropping out of school just because of that, just because a lot of teachers used to complain about them, saying these ones are stupid, these ones will not manage. And you find even in a school whereby these weaker students, instead of being helped by the teachers, but the teachers are the ones pulling them down and telling them that we are going to demote you because you don't deserve to be here because maybe you failed in this subject. So we have to take you back to the previous class. So when all this is being talked and the student is there in front of others in the classroom, so all the other students start laughing at the other students. They start bullying the other students. And at the end of the day, you find that either the students changes the school or at the end they just drop out of school and that is over for them. So I think teachers really have a big role to play in helping these students understand about themselves and the reality, and to also know that we need to give them time. That's what we understood from the story. The teachers need to give students time to listen to what the students also have to say. But most of times you find we don't give students time to talk and to listen to them. So the teacher is always the master of everything in the classroom, and we don't get the time to talk to the students in private, to kind of have a friendly conversation with them, which is really important to do, but you find that teachers are not really doing that. So they only talk to the students where they are in the classroom. When they're outside the classroom, that is all. So you find these other students, they are suffering in silence. And the more that the teachers get always serious, sometimes also when teachers are very serious in the classroom, it makes the students to feel like they are bored in the classroom. So the good thing about Zara is when she talks to the students, sometimes you need to have some stories to share with the students, maybe some stories of other people who had the same problems and how they were helped. So this can really motivate the students, and it can really make them to believe that it is possible. I can also change and achieve something. If this person was like me and was helped and achieved good grades, it means I can also be like that. So that is what we really have to see how to do as teachers in the classroom, not to kind of be the ones to bring down the students, to bully them, because I've seen teachers who bully students in the classroom in front of other students, and that is not really cool. That's not really good. So teachers need to change and to see how they can help these students. So this story is very great because it walks us through all those paths, and it really helped me as a teacher to understand that I have to deal with such students in this way, just like as Zahara did. And it really helped my class, and my students improved in their performances in the classroom. So it is something really nice to implement in the school.
Thank you. Thank you. Beautifully said. Okay. Now we're going to go to the story.
Part 5. Zahara helps a student. Zahara would often go and watch the young boys play football. Her eye often turned to Luam, who seemed to be gifted in his football abilities. He was a very confusing boy for the teachers to accept, as he was a natural leader on the school football field, but very disruptive in his school learning. Yet on the football field, the boys naturally followed his lead, laughing at his jokes and marveling at his cleverness in the game. His confidence radiated like the sun, unmistakable and bright. However, in school, he would often talk out loud, making a lot of jokes, which were very upsetting for the teachers to accept. He rarely would do his homework, and when he was not joking around, he basically seemed to be sleeping or bored in class. Most teachers assumed he wasn't capable of learning, but Zahara saw things differently. Zahara loved the spirit of the boy and wondered if she could help Luam begin to enjoy school with some of that confidence and enthusiasm that he showed on the football field. She asked if she might have a friendly chat with Loam after school, and although he was not too keen, he agreed. She brought along 2 cookies and soda pops for them to share, and they found a peaceful spot in the nearby forest where they could talk quietly. Zahara asked Loam to share why he enjoyed football so much. He said it just seemed to come naturally for him, and he loved the feeling of playing. My heart feels so good, and I forget about everything else except playing football. Zahara said, do you know what athletes who are naturally gifted call that feeling when you forget everything else except playing football? No, said Luam. It's called being in the zone, Zahara explained. You forget everything except the magic of the moment, the thrill of letting the spirit express itself through you. Your body and mind move in perfect harmony with the energy of the game and the ball. Some even say you become one with the ball. To her surprise, Luam nodded, saying he understood exactly what she meant. It was the reason he loved football so much. He smiled and said, I get that same feeling when I dance to music. My feet and body are flowing with movements that surprise even me. I love that feeling. Exactly, said Zahara. You are in the flow with the music, just as you are in the flow with what is happening on the football field. Zahara asked Luam, do you think you can have that feeling when you are in school? Luam looked thoughtfully at Zahara with amazement. Well, I have never felt it. Zahara noticed a big drop in the mood of Luam as he changed from happiness about talking about sport and music to a sad feeling about school. Zahara laughed and said, let's have our cookie and pop now. This relaxed Luam, and he began sharing his true feelings about school. Zahara simply listened, enjoying her time with this fascinating student. Luam began casually talking. I actually find school boring. None of the teachers seem to care about me. At home, both my mom and pop are always criticizing me. They never say anything nice to me. I feel it is the same in school. Why should I make an effort when they are always assuming I do not know the answer? I like to learn, but can't we have fun doing it? Zahara spoke gently. Yes, some teachers may seem too serious, but they're doing their best. However, your happiness comes from you, not them. You know I teach happiness is free. You should not give up your happiness. It is irresponsible to do this, and all it does is make you not have fun. Can you see that, Luam? Luam again surprised Zahara. I know this to be true, but what do I do when they are always complaining about me? Zahara encouraged him. You find a good feeling inside yourself, and you let that good feeling guide you to your happiness. All of a sudden, Luam smiled. You know, you are right. I will try that and see if that works. Luam went to school the next day with a changed attitude. He was curious to see if a good feeling could lead him to the happiness he knew existed in everybody. To his surprise, it did. When one of the girl students laughed at him for being so stupid, he simply tapped into that good feeling and found that her words did not touch his heart. When a teacher doubted he knew an answer, he smiled at her and told her he did know the answer, but he just needed a moment to calm his mind down. And then he told her the correct answer. Over time, Loam noticed that learning in the classroom was much like playing on the football field. All he needed to do was get in the zone, and enjoy the experience. He had learned that if he could do this with music and football, he could do it at school. He even joined the dance club at school, and he loved that as much as playing football. To his surprise, so did his parents. After sharing with Luam, Zahara thought these would be good questions to ask her class. Question 1. What did Luam understand about happiness? Question 2. Is happiness free? Question 3. What does being in the zone mean? And why do athletes love this state of mind? Question 4. Can you become one with the ball? How? Well, this is for teachers. Um, it, the biggest factor for me looking back on my teaching career and then what we're doing here is the compassion. We've all got the opportunity to be compassionate. And when we're working in helping professions, which teaching is one, it for true success, it requires compassion. A teacher can be, appear to be a great teacher because he's a great disciplinarian. When I was training to be a teacher, we were taught not to get too close to the kids because
Wow.
then you'd be influenced as to how to grade them impartially. An impossible and directly wrong thing to do. And then in my earlier years of teaching, it was beyond me. I, you know, I, I, I couldn't do it that way. I tried, and it was always a struggle, and I was always not succeeding. And I felt like the people that had the power, my administrators or government inspectors or any of that, they were coming around looking for a hard ass, a guy who didn't take anything from these kids and worked them hard and got these great results on government exams. And that was the limited purview of a teacher, not anything to do with humanity, not anything to do with being a proper role model. I mean, it was always there. You're always a role model as a teacher, but if you're not realizing it, then you're conveying things that you really don't want to. So that compassion thing is big. Um, this was Zahara reaching out to a student who she felt was potential was not being reached and was in an unhappy place. And that was her compassion coming in. And I may have mentioned this before, but this one teacher's workshop that I went to when I was considered a successful teacher, I was the English department head at the time. Only department heads went there. But that's that. I really wasn't what I was considered to be. And somebody mentioned that there was a teacher in California who taught in a school of 2,000 students, which is what I was doing. And there were many students. I don't know how many is many, but he was aware of students that would go through their whole day in this massive school without making eye contact with anyone. No teachers or other students. They were lonely, lost kids in the middle of all that. They were faceless, you might say. And that caught me. he talked about what he was doing, and what he did was he shook hands with every kid every day. At least that was eye contact for every child that he worked with, and of course, far beyond. And when I went back to school the next day, I started standing at my door and greeting every student with a handshake and even more, a question or two. How are you doing? Where's the energy? What's exciting in your life right now? Those kinds of questions. And they were sincere questions. I wanted to know. I wanted to get deeper. I wanted to earn trust. And it had an incredible effect. Now, it's not, you say, oh, it's a technique. When you're going for compassion, that's not a technique. That's deepening yourself in whatever way you can. And this changed everything for me. I wasn't in hell at school. I was enjoying my job, but I was working, trying, never really knowing. And at that point, it became different. I any minor problems, any discipline problems melted away. My classroom was relaxed, and my students felt welcome there, and I'm really proud of it. And in the very first day of school, when new kids came in my room, I walked around the room and I wrote their name down on my seating plan and register, and I shook hands. And I kept doing it from then on because I had a plan with a seat and a name. So the first days I went up and down the aisles for the first 10, maybe 15 minutes of class, letting the kids relax and sharing with them. And one statement I made to my kids, and I stuck by it: "You're mine now. I will never hurt you." And that works miracles. I can tell you that works miracles. There's nothing I could recommend more. And they would give me then, I would be the go-to guy for the tough kids, the discipline problems, the kids that had been isolated. Some of them had been away to juvenile prison. When they come back to school, they put them in this one portable where there was a couple of teachers, and they never left their their classroom, and they were isolated from the rest of the campus. And then as they progressed, they would bring them to me, and I would be their entry point back into school. They would join my class. So I'm super proud of those factors in my career, and that's what we're talking about here. When you created Zahara, the compassionate teacher, uh, it's the first step for changing all the schools that don't understand that.
I'd like to give an example of what Jim is alluding to from a different perspective, from the student's perspective. When I was in grade 2, I was very insecure about going to school. It was a very strange experience for me. And as people can tell, I'm a bit of a blabbermouth and a bit of a person who has a lot of opinions, kid. But I was very, very insecure. And the grade 2 teacher was Mrs. Kindle. I still remember her name. And she was soft and gentle and supportive. And she always made me feel comfortable. I always felt I could never have gotten what I got out of school without that soft, gentle support feeling. I was nervous. I was scared. It was hard for me to understand what school was about. It was so strange, so different than what I had seen as a young before that. And so because of that, I did really well in the class because of the compassion and love, the grandmotherly feeling of feeling that I was liked, that she enjoyed me. And we had a bond between each other that lasted a lifetime. We didn't see each other that much, but whenever we saw each other, we both had this beautiful, beautiful bond. So that not only helps the kid, the student from in the class to get better results and even re-enter, it lasts a lifetime. And that's really important to understand. A teacher is supporting the student for a lifetime, helping them to adjust to this strange world, and school just scared me like crazy until I got comfortable. And then I was always disruptive, but I was, I was learning, and I was fitting in to what was required. So, Sherwin, can you say a few words? And even Mark, you're certainly free to say a few words as well. I'm not sure if Sherwin, are you there, Sherwin? Go ahead, Mark, if you like.
Okay, great. Well, I'm getting so much from what you guys are sharing on that. It's really about life, living in that feeling of beyond the details, beyond the how other people are presenting and so on, and living in this feeling and not trying to control or get frustrated, or it's really pointing to going inside and sharing that feeling that we're okay, everyone has it inside them. And I know that a teacher that I had in grade 9 could have helped me by not slotting me as a disruptive person, which I'd never been. But just that one instance took me off track really on learning the math that was new at that time. And so, it is important for the teachers to be grounded in this feeling that no student is, even if they're talking a bit too much, no student is every student needs support, and every person needs support. I'm learning it goes to heartfelt presence where I'm sharing there, for example, where I want to welcome people from however they present, and I'm realizing we want to go beyond the high intellect, the high just good thoughts. We want to go to that feeling. Anyway, I'm a little dozy this morning, so I won't say too much more.
Okay. One of the things I want to talk about is in the zone, and I want to talk about it as an athlete, because I've always been an athlete, and the reason I love being an athlete is because of being in the zone. I want people to understand it's not just a higher state of mind, or it's something that you automatically can slip into. I'm going to describe it as Jack Nicklaus described it. Jack Nicklaus has won the most golf tournaments ever. And he said, when you're in the zone, it's like you can't make yourself get in the zone. It just kind of happens. And when it happens, it's like watching yourself, he's a golfer, hit the perfect shot your mind and your body is in perfect harmony with each other, and you're objectively watching yourself do it. And it's perfection. It's one with God, one with spirit. And in that space that I have experienced in the zone, magic happens. I know you will not believe this, Jim, but someone would hit in tennis a ball over the net and I could not reach it. I could stop the ball. I could actually stop the ball and take that extra step to reach it. And then I would return it out of amazement. It was a feeling so enriching that it was something worth the whole game. Everybody is concentrating on winning, which takes you out of in the zone. Except when you're in the zone, winning is part of the component. But it's not the major part of the component. The ability to step, as Mark says, out of your and into this higher state of consciousness allows you to see your superior self. And it feels so good. So when Jack Nicklaus was in the zone, he would hit the ball, watching himself in perfection. Every athlete knows what that is. People who are not athletes are playing up to their levels. But the ones who have this ability to step beyond love that feeling. That's what a teacher does. And it's the same with music. Luam had that feeling in two areas and in music. And you see people, I always marvel at these jazz musicians, and they pick up the music, but they pick up the feeling, like they just continue with it. That's all we're talking about. And it's the same when Jim and I came together. That was where the music took us. And either you go along with it or you fight it. In today's world, they are fighting it. But the wise ones go with the flow. And Mark, within that flow, there's like a bigger energy. And when you can feel it or see that bigger energy, it will take you, it will produce all the love in your heart that you want. And if you cannot see that energy, but you at least know it is there, you head in that direction. But when you don't, when all you can see is winning is everything, or money is everything, or the material world is everything, it gives you an opinion. And Jim defined last week what the ego was by saying, he says, anytime you feel, what was it? Important, self-importance. I don't know how you said it, but you said it in a beautiful way.
That's what it is that makes you feel important.
That's right. What you make feels, you have to get out of that. And when you do, you're in the flow. So when you drop your ego or what you feel is important, then you either feel it or see it. If you see it, you are a seer. If you feel it, you know it is true and you will follow it. But you cannot make it happen. We are not in control of that part of it, but we can drop into it. And when we do, we call it dynamite. Yeah.
I want to tell you a little in the zone. It's not quite the same, but this was back. I left Salt Spring already, and I was now working in industrial construction and I was getting my journeyman ticket. I hadn't graduated university quite yet. I did that while I was doing this in night school, but I was working as an insulator in construction, and I had to go to trade school. You have to take like 6 weeks off, and you go back to school. It's in a shop, and there's an old timer there, or two or three, and they're teaching a squad of about 20 or 30 apprentices. And in that trade, there's a lot of geometry. A lot of, and believe it or not, there's, it's basically it's sheet metal, wrapping sheet metal around pipes and elbows and tanks and that sort of. So you got to measure the circle. You got to find, the diameter. You got to find the area on it goes. And so there was a lot of that type of math in that. And I had been to university. I was the only guy in the local that had been to university, hadn't graduated yet, but I knew I was pretty smart. A lot of the guys, you had to have a ninth grade education to get into that trade. You did have to know how to do these things. You had to learn them. Anyway, I was in trade school, and it was coming up to near the end. I don't know, it was a final exam, but it was close to it. In the math section, we actually had a math section where we had a math teacher, and it was the middle of winter, and it was well below 0 Fahrenheit, let's say 10 below, 20 below. It had been a blizzard, a snowstorm. I had to drive across town, and the roads were closed. Some of them were shoveling snow off the roads. Anyway, it created my arriving at the test half an hour late, and I came in the room all snowy and snow boots, and everybody was well into their, answering these tough questions. And I had to sit, he handed me a paper, and I sat down, there was no, oh, Jesus, what did I do? It was just get into it. And I went into the test taking zone, and I went like this. I was the first one done. It was like an hour test. I got in there, and half an hour late. Ba-da-da, 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 and I looked around, and everybody was working. I had been lost in it. And I walked up, and I handed the paper, and I went and sat down, and the other papers went up, and the teacher was marking them as they came up. Top score in the class. First one done, half an hour late. And we got our papers, and there was 3 or 4 hot shots in that group that were really, really working hard on their math end of things. And they all had to come by and pick up my paper and check it to make sure. But big experience, a lifetime experience in a sense. I'll never forget it. What happened? It was almost like I hardly read the questions. I just knew these answers, worked them fast, and that is an example of being in the zone, just in another walk of life. It's like getting into the moment. Whenever I've remembered about it happening, something like that happening, it's not that I could plan it, not that I could rehearse for it, not that I could do anything for it. I just had to step into the moment. And then when you're in the moment, there's nothing else but what's going on in that moment. And it is an incredible experience. And I believe we all get a chance at this, some more than others. Athletes, of course, are in that position. And on top of it, they have an incredible crowd around, that are getting in the moment and in the zone with them, in fact. Did you see that shot? Did you see that catch? How about the World Series where the Chicago Cubs were going to win finally after 100 years, and the guy went to catch the ball, and somebody in the stands reached over and caught it? They ended up losing the game and losing their opportunity, but in the zone, nobody will forget. Nobody will forget being there, that moment, that when everything else disappeared. Anyway.
No, that's beautiful. So we are experiencing being in the zone all the time. And Luam experienced being in the zone in music, in sport, and then he found what Jim found, that he could, it didn't have that exotic, oh, I'm playing sport and I'm winning at sport. It had a different flavor, but he stepped into the zone. And that is our teacher's message. When you step into the zone, that is the reality. That is the truth. And it is so uplifting that we never forget it. And it's the same when any teacher shares love. We never forget it. Our heart remembers it for eternity. So we are very, very lucky. Sherwin, are you able to talk or not talk?
Hi. Yeah, I think I'm able right now. The network is really disturbing. It is on and off every time, so it is somehow difficult. Yeah, so I'm going just to share a little bit about the discussion on being in the zone. So yeah, there is a moment that we all have feel being in the zone when we do something that we really enjoy, something that brings joy to us. And at that time, we feel like we forget about the other things and just focus on the moment that we are living at that time. And with the story of playing football, and Zahara understood Luam. And that's why Zahara had to talk to Luam and explain to him about the way that he feels when playing football could be also the same way that he could feel when he was in the classroom. So he just had to bring that same feeling that he felt when playing football and transfer it into the classroom. And Zahara understood that because she was compassionate. She really needed to help Luam and felt like she had to have a conversation with him, which most of times you find teachers here in our area don't really do. Most of times teachers that know that their work is just to get into the classroom, to give the lesson that they planned, and when the time is over, that is all. So they don't have this compassion. They don't give the students time to talk to them about maybe their personal struggles that they are going through. Yet these students are really going through a lot of difficulties in their own lives. These could be at home, the kinds of lives that they are living, and you find that they don't have someone to talk to and share all these things that they're going through. So you find when they are really lost in their thoughts, thinking about all these things, they bring that feeling in the classroom. Yet, if the teacher is compassionate and comes closer to these students and give them time to talk to them, the teacher can really play an important role in making these students to change their moods, to understand that it is possible to change the mood which I am in and to be happy in the moment, to get in the zone and not to always focus on the negativity, on the things that don't bring me happiness. So that is what teachers are still lacking. They only focus on the curriculum that they have to finish. So you find teachers just coming and pushing and running just to finish just what they prepared to teach. About the students, they don't care about their own personal struggles and everything that they are going through in their lives. So we can really help students when we bring them closer, when we talk to them, when we share with them, and we can find that the sharings that we have with them can help them to start getting in the zone, to bring that feeling of happiness in the classroom and to start having good grades in the classroom, which will be a good thing for both the teacher and also the students.
Yeah. I want to add one element to it. Like when you were talking, I remember when I was in my daughter's grade 2 class and going around, I went around to this student, and my daughter had assigned each of a group. Each kid was working on their own, but it was each class. Everyone in the class was doing it. And I was going around helping and so on. And I went to this young lady, this grade 2 student, and she was totally comfortable doing the project, but she loved that I just sat there and participated with a feeling. I said nothing. All I did was sit there, and it just made her feel special. And after it was finished, I just left just with a nice little smile and telling her how much I enjoyed sharing it. But she did not want help. She just wanted me to be there. And when I was there, I could feel it. I could feel it because my mind was quiet. And that was a success and a beautiful feeling. So compassion comes in many different forms, sometimes talking, sometimes being quiet, but it generally involves you being there in the zone or in the moment with the student. And that is a beautiful teacher, helping the student. And that to me is the key element as a teacher. You help the student. And if if the student is not relating to you, my advice is you change. Don't ask the student to change. And that has been my mantra in all aspects. If I am not communicating with a student, it's on me. I can perhaps see how to do a little bit better, a little bit more understanding, or a little bit more fun and not so serious. So with that in mind, I think this is a good place, unless you feel like finishing up, Jim. It's a good place for us to say thank you very much once again. Thank you, Jerwin, Mark, and we will put this out again at 3P in Africa Facebook group, and also the YouTube channel for you to listen to it. I'll edit out all the disturbances and so on. Thank you again very, very much. And we have 2 more classes, very dear classes to us, because it will be with dear Liza, which we love because of our teacher. So thank you very much, everyone. Asante sana. And as Jim would say, Jim?
Aloha.
And